What was the matrix that they needed to protect us from before we entered into this new matrix called Catholicism or Islam or Hinduism or whatever? What was the previous matrix built out of? Is it just some intersection of primality and evil that resulted, or like to get even more basic and more secular, like primality, fear, greed, and the kind of like tyranny and a use of power that doesn't result in mature, diverse ecosystems and a care for the goodness of all beings?
You are now entering the container.
The container is now open, and we're going to talk to Rob Kancler about escaping the Matrix, which we've spent a good deal of time kind of detailing what exactly the Matrix is, and maybe it's any kind of container or game that we find ourselves in. It might be the state, it might be religion, it might be like the way people talk to each other in a given society, and it might be all of those things kind of added up into one like gooey bubble. And so escaping the Matrix becomes this question of how do we become more at choice, like when we're playing the game of people living in a nation, or we play the game of people like having an awkward conversation at a dinner party. Like how do we do that at choice, rather than feeling like it's what has to be done and that's just the way things always have been. And like like Rob said in an earlier conversation, rather than being the goldfish who don't know what water is, how do we like actually see the water? Yeah, that sounds like we're getting to the point. And then and then what's the meta unplug? What if you get down to the very bottom when Morpheus pulls the needle out of Neo's head and he's like not in the Matrix anymore? What is the full unplug? And we're playing around with the idea that that is actually the mystical journey, is the fullest unplug. You got to the bottom. That feels like we've gotten there. If you've listened to the podcast, you know that Rob Kancler is an expert in the male sexual journey into spirituality, and using that doorway as a way to kind of enter the mysteries. And also before we begin, shout out to the Patreons or the patrons. They went to patreon.com/thecontainer and they make small monthly donations, which help pay for the show. And there's really very few shows out there that are going to tell you how to meta unplug from the Matrix. I think that is pretty true.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think so.
Does that get us there? Does that get us?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think so.
Nice. Well, hello, everybody.
Hello, Rob.
Yeah, I was somehow speaking to the non-visible people that are listening to the recordings. But hello, Jonathan. Hello, Sai. And before we got live here, before we started rolling, Sai's mad, but not at anybody. Just so it's also something that I'm wondering about. Why are you so mad, Sai? And what's your summer bliss about besides squirting?
Oh. Why is a funny question. I was feeling anger, intense anger. And it was interesting to be in that state of like yellow red zone, because it was like when I was really feeling into it, it really felt that it was about like a tone versus like even content of what was happening. I mean, the content certainly like contributed to it, but there was, yeah, like this interaction that Jonathan and I were having, and there was an intensity of excitement, I think, like for both of us in the conversation, and then there was like this tone, and it hit me, and it, yeah, I like, I mean, the best way I could interpret it is that maybe it felt like taunting or teasing, or like that was how it landed in me. It, and I felt very young in that moment, like I was, or like I was a little kid, yeah, being like taunted, or like, yeah, there was, that was how it landed in me. Certainly not how I think Jonathan in any way intended to send it. And I want to make that very clear. Jonathan was not taunting me. But that was
Maybe.
but that was
Maybe
how
part
it
of me was.
and then, yeah, and then we knew we had just a few minutes before we were recording, and so it was like, should we cancel and like keep processing this
Oh,
thing?
sweet. Well, here we are.
So here we are. Yeah.
It brings up like an impulse to kind of like draw a bridge or something between that and the theme of the hour here. It's
I
just
was,
like,
yeah.
yeah, it's curious. Like, how might we apply this metaphor, or like literally be describing reality by talking about the matrix of our own like trauma and insecurities and like whatever crunchy dynamics can be outpictured in our relationships or whatever, or actually just be a part of the interpersonal reality in a way that we might not really want to play into, but these to 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 make a bold claim of them, like to say that these toxic behaviors are a part of our ranges or our habits or our tendencies or our adaptive child, and like what is that matrix that we kind of carry and generate, at least as like an echo or possibility scape or something like that, is super interesting. And I've noticed clearly in moments a feeling of like being with my sweetie and feeling like the yeah, just to use the word, like the matrix in the room is one of conflict, even though we're both aware of it and we're kind of like not oriented to that as the primary thing, that it's still just like, huh. Like it happened, I think, just yesterday or maybe the day before, that we both were just kind of like, very interesting. Just kind of like with this, like this funny. It's like I feel like almost like the room wants us to fight. Like
Yeah, like
there
conflict is
wasn't totally, yeah, like conflict is the context that's at least here partially. You know, like it might not be the dominant one. And then other times like it is, you know, that it's like there's more consciousness or more dexterity or whatever than the conflict matrix, or there isn't. And like, when do we need to cool off or like take a break or be like, all right, that's a here be dragons. Let's not fuck around and find out, you know.
Yeah, something, yeah, when you, because you asked like why, why are you mad? And I was like really feeling into this and going like, no, it's not even about the why. Like I could see that I was just like, "Ugh," just kind of like moving, I don't know, like being hit by this way. And I could, and I realize I'm talking loud, but I could
Talk loud. Fuck yeah. Yell.
down why. I could chase down the why, and I think that would just cause more of a mess. It isn't even, it's like, oh, well, maybe it's because, blah, blah, blah. But it all feels like I'm grabbing from this probability cloud that is,
Mm,
it's like, who knows? I probably it's because of this content that's been like,
yeah.
that we've been messing around with all day. Like it's been kind of up for both of us. But if I was completely equanimous, if I was totally like in this um removed like third person's perspective, you know, it's like I wouldn't, there's still like this choicefulness of like, I
Mm.
don't know, choosing in a way. It feels like an unconscious choice, but an unconscious choice to be mad
Mm.
at you, at you. It
Yeah.
was clear I was just mad, not at you.
Yeah. Cool. I mean, it brings up so many things. One immediate thought bubble for me is around like how do we move these energies in a way that is not quote unquote toxic or like leads to more disharmony and weird instead of less? Like how do we move with the aliveness and like the ranges of the human experience without doing something sketchy or fucked up or creates more conflict and disconnection. Because
Mhm.
in hearing you share, Sai, there's like moments where I'm like, yeah, that's cool. Like I almost like want to like, yeah, get it. Like there's something. It's an interesting navigation, right? Like when is it better to like inhibit those impulses and just kind of be more soul back and more like masculine pole oriented, and when is it better to like move the energy, and then how do we do that, how do we set a context for that, how do we do that safely? He brings
Mhm.
up things around like like the use of space and taking space and enrolling people and setting up explorations where we might want to physically and energetically fuck around.
Mm.
Because like maybe, do you know what I mean? Like maybe that energy wants to move, and it brings up questions for me around how like the content is often where we get fucked up. Where it's
Mhm.
like if it's like, oh, you asshole for like patronizing me or whatever, is like, yeah, that might create actual conflict instead of you being able to be like, there's this feeling that I feel, and like yeah, and then gosh, that's tricky. And I think catharsis is also kind of complicated when people, can get in the addiction of stuff that isn't really moving energy, but kind of playing in the adaptations. But I just see that people often don't really see that clearly. The discernment between like unhealthy catharsis and like really moving energy and taking space with the different ranges of our experiences and thus having corrective experiences and very beautiful ways of playing with each other with these ranges that we might not know how to play with or aren't so easy to embody when we're not making a clear space for them, like a clear container or space for them. And this is, I think, part of why I've been super interested in different kinds of circle work that are not circling. And in a format way, it's like, how do we use the middle of the circle? Like it can be really great to be very like soul back and have that capacity of just tracking what is arising with a whole high level of consciousness. And then what about this other piece when we want to like move energy or there's an intelligence in the field or in certain dynamics where there's a possibility to meet and play in these different ranges and how that can be really fun and beautiful and build community and tribe and relationship and all that, but also how that can be really healing and corrective and deal with shame in the places in which we develop personas and shadow to not have to access ranges that we don't know how to be safe in because they've been conditioned out of the, from the matrix, let's say, like out of the matrix of the way that we are conditioned and socialized, that there are certain ranges that we, took on or concluded or not welcome, that I need to do certain things to get love and not others, or certain things to avoid harm and disconnection. So yeah,
Mm.
just kind of riffing on like the models that I see here and how this relates to my work and interest comes into the picture too. Because like I did a lot of circling and then I started to just kind of feel like this isn't what I want to do with groups of people. There's like way more feminine to bring. There's way more embodying and playing together and like really meeting each other in the stuff and like wanting to almost like use the space more than just be in the emergence with a high level of consciousness and truth that there's another layer.
Mm.
Yeah, that has me imagine that when you say circling, it's not the same practice that we would call circling
Hmm.
and do.
Well, I think that it is what we once called circling,
It is what we once
and
called
then
circling.
when we started practicing more the surrendered leadership model, that
Hmm.
it describes kind of what Rob was just describing, or
Hmm.
it holds like these much more I don't know, it holds so much more than what circling was like when we first
Yeah.
Hmm.
began.
Yeah, there's sort of like an analytical circling.
Right.
Yeah, where it's like this is what's arising, and it's like, yeah, the noticing, and then there's like something, a word we've used a lot is contact, of like
Right.
using the space as like, oh, I'm actually like, rather than noticing things, it's like I can actually be things, and like I can
Yeah.
actually just like work getting the life. It's like life force is coming up, like, in oceans, like the bottom of the oceans, there's like the little spumes of like geothermal heat, and it's like you land on one, and then it's like, oh, I can actually get that to like go
Hmm.
up and inflate me in certain shapes, and it's like, whoa, I'm
Yeah.
not angry, I am anger right now, or like,
Hmm.
yeah. And I'm noticing like just so many reps of that um has me like thinking back to you talking about sort of suspicion around this like why question,
Mm-hmm.
and something that I've been dealing with a lot lately over this like difficult arc has been like, oh man, like there's like the left brain compulsive narrator that really wants to build a case that to justify the things that are up for me, and like they're like, it's like the One Ring, or like it's like a big fat line of speed. It's like, come, do this, get on this ride.
Hmm.
And then there's like, yeah, like, is it all this way? Is there actually never like the it's like the castles of reason, actually, are they always um nothing in the end? Are they always Fugazi? Like that is ah
Yeah.
How does that make you feel, Jonathan?
Yeah.
I know,
Hell
guy.
yeah.
There's like, there's times where there's values in the field, and it's like that feels really real, and I don't want to deconstruct all my values, my
Yeah.
precious values.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm curious if this like maps onto what you're saying or feels tangential and not really on the same track. But like it brings up like when do we be with our thought stuff and our stories, and when do we just move energy and like stop with the verbal whatevers, but like, and maybe verbal stuff can be included, like having like a phrase or whatever can be helpful to like lock on, but like the sense of like, let's just move energy in a way that's not really the content or the mind is definitely something that I, especially in working with amplified fields, like working with groups of people or doing like deep explorations one on one, it's like that seems like a really, really important part of how bodies work. Like we need
Mm-hmm.
to kind of like let go of the story and just like learn to move energy, like how to bodify things and how to express things and how to let stuff move through us in a way that isn't about the story. Cause it's like in hearing you, Jonathan, there's so much like, moving. And it's like, that would be fucking cool to just feel you take space with all that and like let go of the whatever, but just like let that, like give your body 3, 5, 7, 20 minutes to just like take space with moving that. And then whatever you might find beyond or under it or whatever is like fascinating.
Mm.
Fascinating how much that, like having space for that and being met in that and unwinding that and getting beyond it is amazing. How I've just seen, and I'm sure you have too, like over and over and over again, how the healing and the realization and the heart opening and the intimacy comes after people move the thing on a body level. It's like, but if you go into the story of it, it often just turns into conflict, and then people want to sit around and fucking process for 19 hours.
Well,
Like
there's also like real problems to be solved. It's like, but there is at the end of the day, this problem that needs to a resolution. It has to have a resolution. Like there is like
Mhm.
and so then it's like that, and that also hooks you in because you're like, oh, well, if we verbally process it, we're gonna eventually get to the
I know.
problem
I
solution.
know. Totally.
And and so
Totally.
where do you insert the energy release? Like at what point is moving the energy like,
Yes.
yeah,
Yeah.
um
Yeah.
yeah, so then it's like
Hell yeah.
interesting.
Yeah, I've had times of feeling like it's fucking gaslighting when somebody's just like, just drop the fucking and I'm just like, I'm gonna kill you. Like it's just, there like it literally feels like I'm being scapegoated via our somatic brilliance or whatever, instead of like being taken seriously for the thing that I want to address. So there's that too, so it's like, I think as facilitators, there's this huge question of like, how do we hold the complexity of like this is a person and their life. Like it's not just a fucking story, but
Right.
it also, it kind of is. So like,
Yeah.
it's like that. But it's like, for me, it's this interesting thing of like, where really is there the most energy? Because I think it can so often be a decoy when people are like, but I just really need to be heard. And there's another time where it's just like, would you be willing to just kind of like shut the fuck up and take space with your emotions and with your body? And then other times that can really not work, and it detracts from where we might find the most substance. So yeah, I think that this is a journey for facilitators that want to go down the route of including the whole human experience. And I've gone pretty hard into the like context work of just like, fuck all your stories, and like, let's just really be with the context and with the body and the energy here. And that's great. And I've also spent 100 million hours processing to no end. And I think the intersection or the integration of both of these things is critical in my life, and currently like what I see about what I want from here. And facilitation is like, yeah, and it takes trust. It often takes authority. It takes good facilitation to have someone like drive the bus, to be like, okay, well, I'm gonna have some I'm gonna make a bold move and kind of tell you what to do here, or at least be firm in my invitation. And yeah, it brings up things around like a need for coherence and like a high level of resource in the field, so that these kinds of moves that might be necessary happen within the capacity of the field.
That what's coming up for me is this sort of uh real meta skill, I guess. Maybe it's not meta. It's a skill. I don't know why. Meta seems like the right kind of skill though. Where it's like they don't really. Well, they do this a little bit in the movies, The Matrix. I kind of want to bring it back to this, where it's like, there are some problems that you solve by actually going back into the Matrix. And then there are some problems you solve by like getting out of it. Um, and like in real life, like when you're processing things, it's like I'm kind of like re-wrapping up what you said, Rob, to like kind of like write this in my personal neurons a little bit better. But it's like, yeah, sometimes this channel up here sort of is in a matrix of personal history and stories, but it's like, yeah, but the actual like the action right now is actually in there. And like, we can go down to like non-dual, we're in an ocean of being, and like, Vishnu is taking a nap on the like ocean of milk or whatever. Like we can go down there, but like that's not always where the action is for us
Yes.
incarnate beings, and it's like having,
Yeah.
like you said, the bus driver, it's like who there is so familiar at all of these levels that they're actually at radically at choice and
You're
can be like,
100, you're on the thing. Hell yeah. Continue. I didn't mean to interrupt you. I'm just jamming with you. Yeah, dude. Hell yeah. Yeah.
hmm.
You want to say more?
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. I'm kind of resting here in this vision of like this stack of frames and being like so like
Yes.
masterful is almost the wrong word because that is like itself kind of trapped
Yeah.
in like 10,000 hour side of story. But
Yeah.
it's like, you know, it's like I can just see
Yeah.
the where the light is on in the skyscraper and like we're going there.
Yeah.
Um, yeah.
Yeah, but I also imagine that like we've all seen someone who is just running around on a hamster wheel thinking that they're solving their problems, right? And we
Yeah.
probably have also seen a bunch of people who think they're gonna like consciousness work or like trauma work their way out of taking responsibility for their life. And it's like, yeah, that happens a lot. I've done that a lot. I've seen that a lot. And it seems like what is the skill is like discernment in a way. And I think that this is also part of the value of having coaches and having community is because at a certain up until a certain point, your discernment's kind of shitty. So like how do you outsource that or just show up in containers in which that isn't the problem? Which I know for me was like, thank God that I had a teacher that I could spend, we met 1 to 3 times a week for like 3 or 4 years during the thick of my whole thing. And that discernment, being able to really not just hear from somebody who could see shit, but who could actually help me to use my nervous system and my body and my consciousness correctly by exploring things with so much slowness and feedback and direction and really like him accompanying me and me accompanying him and him pointing to stuff and modeling things and the kind of proxy entrainment thing that happens with different ranges being embodied by somebody else that then you can be invited into and like all that stuff. And then being in containers with groups is critical, but for my particular journey, having so much time and like one-on-one with someone who is way higher up the mountain than me was critical. And I don't know. I mean, maybe the group fields that I've been in have been huge because that those containers are just rapid learning to the nth degree, as we know well. So, yeah, it's cool. It's interesting to really look at like how prone people are at certain stages in the game here to not seeing clearly whether their kind of involvement in their uh, neurotic thoughts is indeed futile and neurotic or if it is actually constructive. And same in our creative and professional lives. I think this is the case where sometimes I'm like, hey, I'm almost positive that the thing that you're working so hard on is not going to work because you're not in alignment with it. And like you can maybe just put your foot on the gas and like brute force adrenaline your way into success, but probably not. Or for certain people that don't have that masculine edge, you're going to burn out before this thing works. So, should we actually focus on consciousness and inner work? Because otherwise, everything else is just a waste of time because we're in such malalignment with our essence that trying to do shit is not going to help. And then when is that just another deception? When is that just another thing? And it's like, no, like, go do shit, like take action, go do shit. Like I see this so much in teaching things related to dating and like social engineering related skills, like charisma. Is someone's like, oh, I just feel insecure. I need to like work on my trauma. And it's like, no, you just need to go talk to her, dude. I'm like,
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Like there are people, I that came up for me just a second ago where it's like um like on a spectrum, if you were to do like a test 100 times of like like where I go when stress is afoot, it's probably more towards collapse than towards like grandiosity or something, like
mm,
more often. And
hmm
so when I have this desire to like, well, I need to retreat and I need to like do inner work to deal with this
Mm,
problem, this conflict that I feel we're in. It's
mm,
like, is that just because it's easier for me? Like, is
mm.
it just because I'm more prone to, to that side of the spectrum?
Totally.
Or, and so like having that discernment, like you say, and again, it's like for every situation, it's a different discernment because sometimes I am more prone to that
Yeah.
grandiosity,
Yeah.
side. It's like, all right, then I do need to do
Mhm.
the sit down and like
Yeah. Fuck. Totally.
retreat.
Yeah, and it makes me wonder, like, if we are just really trying to give like a foolproof method, sometimes I found that like maybe you just should do the opposite of what your patterns are until you have the capacity to, and then like worry about what the right thing is. Like if you're
Right.
prone to inaction and like overthinking and just like being stifled by your own mind and processing addiction, then just like take action relentlessly, even if it's inauthentic and weird and not aligned with your soul or whatever, and just get that in your body as a thing that you can do and feel safe enough to do. Like I think ultimately, it's if you can find a coherent and authentic and aligned way to live right off the bat, then cool. But from what I've seen, especially when working with people in the trenches, that's not really accessible. That it's often better to just be like, just fucking do shit, like be a maniac for a while and just do shit. Or to like chill out, dude. Like calm down and feel your feelings. Like maybe that is the thing for people who are like type A, peak performers or whatever. Is just like actually maybe you should chill and not do anything and like really learn to feel and act from a place of discernment and self-connection. Or maybe you should stop being too careful and just do a ton of shit for the next 6 to 24 months and worry about whether or not if you like it and if it's effective later. And just get in the game, like get in the game. I know that this has been true with my entrepreneurial journey is like I've been way on the like, let me be very careful and tedious and construct this thing with like an extremely high level of focus on precision. And then there's been other times where it's like, I'm just going to do a whole bunch of shit and like get out of the garage here and like get in the game. And it doesn't feel perfect, but it feels safe enough. And like, yeah, I'm tired. I'm bored of doing the other thing. And then I've had other times where I'm like going so fast, I'm like running downhill, and just like, oh, fuck, I'm going to roll my ankle or run into a tree. It's just like, okay. Or like I'm going to fly off a cliff or something like that. So then it's like, oh, maybe I need to like chill out and be more calculated in what I'm doing with my energy and my money and all this sort of stuff too. So yeah, I do see in my life how there is absolutely in the past 6 months, especially like an integration of those two pieces of like when is it time to chill and to like take time to calibrate, and when is it time to just be like it's good enough. I'm fucking going. It's fine.
I feel like
Or
it's
it's
just
fun. Yeah.
That time.
So I'm also with, I wrote something down of like, you said, how do we unplug? And within that, there's a premise that like we ought to, right? Or something. So there's one question of like, why, like, can we steelman an argument for not unplugging from the matrix? Because like, my friend Vinay, I haven't talked to him in a long time. Shout out Vinay Gupta. If you, if you know him or magically Vinay hears this podcast, he said something to me one time that he was just like, yeah, some people just need to be fucking kindergarten teachers. And like this whole enlightenment business just isn't for them. And it's like, that's great.
right.
That's
Yeah.
great. There are people that just
Yeah.
need to be kindergarten teachers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and there's this interesting thing of like, you will meet so-called ordinary people who are just like glowing the
Yes.
Dharma. It's
Totally.
just like you're
Totally.
supposed to be here
Totally.
with 5-year-olds and like, whoa, this is like you're levitating, like.
Yes.
Yeah, and it's like, yeah, it's normal or it's like a normal job or whatever, but it's yeah, like
Yeah. Totally. I mean, I'm kind of like like, okay, so I have an amazing mentor person who, a dear friend, somebody that I love dearly. Her name is Uma. She's an incredible yogi and like a real yogi, like a real Indian yogi for real.
Mhm.
And we were in pretty high touch for a while, and then I was not going to be around her, and I asked if she had any advice. And she told me two things. She's like, be ordinary, Rob. Be ordinary.
Mhm.
The second thing she said was choose health, which is great advice too, but I'll focus on the be ordinary thing right now because it was like, yeah, like it was like, yeah, it's like I've put so much energy and attention on being extraordinary. And in sex, for example, and in my spiritual path, just as like a tremendous focus. And then I missed so much shit. Like I missed so much in my teenage years and in my 20s, like focusing on being like a spiritual aspirant who was extraordinary and mystical. And I'm just like a regular fucking dude too. And it's like, yeah, there's all that other stuff is true, but it's like I miss so much. And just like, how do I be ordinary and simple and just like a regular person? And I think really a big part of my focus on the extraordinary was looking for relief, was like looking for a way out of hell and looking for a way to like not be so judged by other people because I wasn't even up to what they were aware of, and like all kinds of other things that I just found like reprieve and space around not doing what everybody else was doing and focusing on things where I have so many gifts, and it was so much easier for me to feel good and to focus on what I liked. And yeah, so it brings up questions of like, when's it good to just be in the ordinary or in the matrix, to use the language that we're playing around with, is like, when do we want to actually do that? And to what extent might we want to get really good at being in the matrix and even pretend that we're in the matrix? You know, like there's something about that that's fun, is like, it's a good time down there, you know? It's nice to be able to like shoot the shit or like go and like have sex, or I mean, certain kinds of sex. I mean, that I'll just leave that as a unclear and ambiguous thing that we can circle back to, because I think that like there's, especially when we look at seduction type stuff and like social engineering, quote unquote, pickup artistry, that there's like if you don't understand how to succeed in the matrix, the likelihood of you just making contact with someone you're sexually attracted to in like a totally dematrixed context is really small. Like it's really small. And I've heard a lot of people, really intelligent people, men that I respect a lot, even say like, oh, well, I'm not interested in like ordinary women. And I'm like, yeah, but they're ordinary too. Like the women you are interested in are ordinary and they're getting coffee and like on their way somewhere. So yes, you might want to like have relationships with people who have the capacity to go super deep and are so deconstructed and have done the work, but like, where are you going to meet them? You know, like, do you have the ability to just have like an ordinary, very like matrixed interaction whenever you see fit or when you feel like that's useful? And the same thing is true with marketing, where it's like, yeah, you can argue all day that like consumer behavior shouldn't be how it is and that like we should be able to just tell people the truth and then they'll buy our transformational offers, but like that's wrong. You know, or the amount of people that work that way are so small, and versus the amount of people that as like service providers we could help if we were to play the game better, I think is selfish and narcissistic and kind of delusional to just be like, oh, like everybody should be able to just feel our transmission and I don't need to learn how to write good copy, is like, yeah, good luck. Good luck with that. Good luck with that. It didn't work. You know, I tried that. It didn't work. Even with like the most obvious thing in the world, teaching people how to have great sex, it didn't work. You know, you have to learn how to play the game.
Yeah.
You're
And
really
it's like, yeah,
use marketing right now, but
what's that? What?
You're really calling out the container marketing strategy right now, but
Well, what I'll say is like I put it like this. So like the amount of people that would benefit from a lot of what these like incredible service providers and thinkers and thought influencers and pioneers and mystics, the amount of people that would benefit from what they do or what they say versus the amount of people that have the palate for spiritual jargon is so disproportionate that I'm just kind of like, we're letting a bunch of stupid people own the commons because they're willing to play the game. And then a bunch of people who like know
Yeah.
brilliant shit are just sitting in a corner talking with their friends
I'm
and
so
and being poor, right? It's like you're sitting in a corner talking with your friends being poor while you hold the keys to humanity and everybody else over there is like having a good time. And it's like, yeah, great. I don't want to do that anymore. Like I tried it and like it was cool, but it's not for me. I don't want to do that.
Mm. Mm.
this reminds me, I think one of the great legacies of chaos magic, for all of its faults, was this emphasis chaos magicians in like the 80s and 90s really put on results. So it's like you read Peter J. Carroll or Phil Hine, and it's like really mystic, far out stuff. And like Peter Carroll, who was the founding writer of in Chaos Magic, he went on to like develop his own like form of physics and so clearly like
Yeah.
a little too many dimensions going on. But the
Yeah.
thing he got was like record with precision the results of your sigil magic.
Yes.
If you're
Dude,
sitting
I mean,
around
this
being
is
like, yeah.
yeah, this is a Nassim Taleb quote where he talks about how uh yeah, he's like cool theories, like show me your fucking portfolio. Which is like, yeah, I get that you think you're a brilliant mathematician, but like show me. Like let's see what's in your portfolio if you think that you are good at, understanding probabilities in mathematics, then like prove it.
It's so weird. It's almost like the Matrix it's like getting out of the Matrix is almost like part of it is getting better results in it. It's like that's part of the benefit of pulling
Yes.
out
That's,
of
I
it.
mean, if you think about Andrew Tate's whole thing, is like he's so anti-Matrix and he's also like, I have 19 supercars and a bunch of wives and $1 billion. And it's
Right.
like, you got to be pretty in the Matrix to think that those things matter,
That reminds me, when I was a boy, the biggest game for a couple of years was The Sims.
Yeah.
Especially for a guy like me and you liked isometric view games. Like The Sims was like the game to play. And I noticed, looking at my life now, my Sims characters always had way more money and bigger houses than I have now. And it's like, one is The Sims is actually like it's a lot easier to gain victory in those ways. But also, it's like when I was playing The Sims, I knew I was playing The Sims.
Right.
So, like, my level of mastery was just off the charts.
Yeah.
Whereas most of the time, I forget I'm playing the game Jonathan right now. And, like, I'm pretending to be a Jonathan who goes around and does stuff. And it's like, yeah, so it's, there's also, like, shadows of
Wow. Cool. Totally. I noticed in our jamming, Jonathan, I have an expression that wants to come through and I don't want to interrupt you. I just kind of want to like semi talk over you while you keep talking. And I noticed that you stop talking when I say shit. And I'm like, oh, I wish you would continue. But I feel like I need to like make a sound. I need to say sounds out of my face to feel good in my body, but I don't want you to stop talking. But yeah, this is so cool. I love this because it's almost like, how do we like put on an act that gets the results that we want and like is fun while also not being deceived about who we really are and what reality is really about is like kind of, I think maybe like a meta thesis of like what we're getting at in this conversation is like, do we want to be able to be like, yeah, sometimes I just want to like do a thing that might feel inauthentic or isn't aligned with my values, but like it kind of is because like, we're not in socialism or whatever. And like, we're in the Kali Yuga. So like, yeah, like maybe I actually just need to like do shit that feels a little wonky so that I can do more of the real thing, right? And like this gets into, I think, deep philosophies around compromise and like skillful tactical approaching. And yeah, I mean that can get really deep and nuanced too. It's
I would
interesting,
like,
right? Because it
yeah, I want to know, like, when you said compromise, I want to know, like, what had you say that, and can we like dig into that
sure,
if that's okay to go in that direction?
totally, totally,
That's
yeah,
that I'm like secretly um
yeah,
getting juice for the larger context that we were engaging in earlier. So
yeah,
that's really
totally.
compromise.
Totally, totally. Yeah, and it's like, why do we want to still be plugged into the Matrix? What?
Right. Well, I'm playing a game, like I'm like, oh, I can like play the game in the Matrix by talking more about compromise
Mm.
as a way.
Uh-huh. Say more. I don't get it fully.
Yeah, I think yeah, I guess like well, it feels like we're getting further away from it now. We might lose it, but when you said that, I was like when we think about being in the Matrix and and one of the ways that we are in the Matrix is having a set of values, right? Like that, and that is important and
Hmm.
on a number of levels. But then there are things that like come up that are not in line with those values, and so then how do you navigate that? And then compromise is one way to navigate that. And it's like, are you compromising your inner, you know are there inner values and outer values? I don't know, just wanting to talk more about that or hear
What did
you talk, really, actually.
you said that like we're in the Matrix because we have values? What do
Right.
you
I think
what
what
do you
I
mean?
meant is that one of the things it of that one piece of being in the Matrix is, I think, having values. Having values um lives within the Matrix. But maybe it doesn't.
I don't know if it does. I think that we have values no matter what. Like, I think
Okay.
that our values are kind of much more about the way that we like make sense of who and what we are and how, like, what is rightful in the way that we show up. I think but it's like maybe what you're pointing to, and let me know, is like, what is the interface between that very personal, soulful thing and like being a part of the construct? Right. Because like
Right.
that interface is super interesting because I know for me and a lot of us that are more like magical, it takes a while to understand the like parameters of natural law, that it's
Mhm.
like there's something that's like, oh, I just wish that I could like think my reality and like defy gravity and shit. And it's just like, yeah, that's not really how it's gonna go for you.
Right.
So like, but then what, right? It's like if we imagine that we're like in the dreaming all the time and natural law doesn't exist in the same way that it does in consensus reality, then yeah, it's like, yeah, you can do that. But if you want to be here and you want to be effective here, it's like, okay, where does the rubber meet the road between my inner self that is infinite and unlimited in a way? Or, I mean, those are big words, but like, is less bound than this place requires to be effective and agent. Um, yeah, that's interesting. Like what is the wisdom? That's a good word. What is the wisdom required to understand how what we care about translates to being effective and practical?
Right.
And I think that this is like where a cool example is like socialism, right? Like where does socialism fit in? Because I think everybody might agree that like, yeah, it would be cool if we just took care of everybody and everything and everyone was welcome. But like, not really. You can't do that. Like you cannot do that. If you create an abundant ecosystem where everybody is welcome, some bad actors are going to show up and fuck up your shit. Like pretty sure that's how it is. So like then what, right? Like what this is where like, violence comes in and power and these things that I think are more complicated. And when people that are much more like spiritually oriented or more feminine can have like a very big reality check of like, oh fuck, like there are these other parts of the self or like of masculinity or of nature that I need to integrate to be able to be effective in this reality, even though in my Candyland fantasy world, that's not true. And everything's fine and everybody can be welcome and there's a seat at the table for everyone and I can just absolutely live my values and get rich and have a harem and do whatever I want. And it's like, not really. Not really. You'll realize, I think most people will by the time they're, 35 or 40, that that's not true. It- but then ultimately, like, can we dematrix all of that when we're mature and seasoned enough? Probably we can. That's an interesting frame of like, do we need to do something kind of gnarly and off kilter a little bit to develop our empire? And where's the line, right? Like, and where's the line of where we're willing to compromise to bring it full circle? Is like, where's the line between like, okay, I'm willing to like write some sales letters that leverage how people are to get some conversion and build my audience or whatever. But where's the line? And then at a certain point, is my brand so robust that I can just be completely authentic and there's enough magnetism or gravity around my brand that people know me and they trust me and that I could just be like, hey, there's this container and it's more full than there are spaces instantly. But you can't do that at the beginning or nobody will come, or maybe just the people who know you really well will come. So that doesn't work, right? And it's like, how do you get to the place where you can do that? You kind of have to go into the matrix. You kind of have to play the game. You kind of have to be willing to get a little scrappy and like, do shit that's like, yeah, maybe in my dream world, that's not a part of it, but that's not real. You can keep waiting and wishing for that to be the way that you'll ascend and develop, but that in all likelihood will never happen. I see this with like men learning pickup is another interesting example of or like learning how to talk to women is they're like, oh, I don't want to learn how to talk to those girls. I just want like, they're not my type exactly, or like, I don't, whatever. And it's like, yeah, but if you don't talk to anybody and then the woman of your dreams is there, you're going to act fucking weird. Like,
Right.
like it's so real. Like, if you're not socializing and then you just expect that, like, when somebody who's exactly the kind of friend or the kind of lover or the kind of mentor that I want, but they're the first humans that I've ever interacted with, it's pretty unlikely that it's going to go well. Like that for so many reasons related to our nervous systems and our psychology and our charisma and our social skills. And like, yeah, it's better to just be in the game of life and then the opportunity will show up and then you can meet it because you're warm, you're in, you practice. And I think it brings up questions around like, practice, the use of practice of like, if you want to play the game of basketball, you got to practice. You don't just play games and expect the championship game to be won. That's not real life. So it's like, do we actually just need to practice being inauthentic and scrappy and doing weird shit and being in the matrix so that when we're in the championship game, we win? Because there's so many people who are losers. And I don't mean this like by identity, like I truly believe in like the inherent universal worth of all beings, but there's something about like people that don't embrace like winning behavior. And I think that there's a delusion of like, oh, I just want to be authentic. And it's like, well, yeah, but then you're not practicing. You're not developing the skills that are required to win. So when a winning opportunity comes, which it probably even won't because you're not in the game, but even if it did, how would you show up for it? How would you know? How would you, how could that possibly show up in your reality if you're not participating in the flow of energy and manifestation in relationship and in the cooperative, collaborative, emergent thing that happens on this plane rather than like, oh, I'm just going to like ideate it and it will emerge. And it's like, maybe, but probably not. Maybe that will happen eventually by you being in the game.
Yeah.
But then on the other side, you can certainly cut down the amount of time that it takes to manifest your dreams by being super conscientious of what you're doing within consciousness. And I think this is another important piece that people overlook. And I get that these topics are very polarizing, that there's a lot of people in the manifestation space that are poor and lonely. And then there's a lot of people who are really involved in the world that are not really connected to their soul, and they're not really connected to what they care about. And I think even the frame of like serial entrepreneurship or serial marketing encapsulates what we're talking about. Is like, does anyone really just want to sell shit on the internet and they don't care what it is? Or do they want to be in the game and they just haven't figured out why, or like what their deeper mission is? And it's like there's so many people who are connected to their mission, and there's so many people who are effective. And it's like I don't see many people who got both going on. There are many, but I don't see a lot, like comparatively, at least. It's like, maybe 1% of people or less, when the rest of the world seems like it's either stifled in its own need for deep alignment or whatever other fruits of that, like overthinking or selling my soul to being in a more secure set of circumstances, or my foot's on the gas, but I'm like, you know, doing something fucking sketchy and like devoid of meaning because I just am adrenalized and greedy or have a big ego or something, which is great. I mean, yeah, I know the parts of me that are adrenalized and greedy and have a big ego, and they're important. It's great to own that and see about integrating it. So, some thoughts.
Or what comes up for me, well, there's about a list of about 10 million things that come up for me hearing you say that, and you used a lot of trigger words for me.
Trigger words.
So yeah.
Like what? Can you name the trigger words?
Oh, just I have just like millions of word rants locked and ready to go if we want to talk about like things like compromise around ideas around like socialism and the history of the 20th century, and like the way almost the way I think about it is like, do you want to win the war? And if you can't win the war, then it actually doesn't matter. Like the thing you're fighting for doesn't matter if you're not willing to win the war for it. Is like a way I distill a lot of that discussion. But then what really comes up for me in compromise and like how do we find our groove to where we're able to actually win the war, but we're winning the war for the right side or whatever, like for the right reasons. We have like the values are intact in this way where they're able to make purchase and meaningful change in the world. And this is not going to be a surprise to Sai, but like what immediately comes up for me is a character like Gandalf. It's like there is like something really like we can only imagine as magical, someone who is like so uncompromised in values and so fucking effective in the material world. Like that is almost like a definition of magic, is like ethereal, like just the cleanest, whitest light of what truth is beaming like into and from the heart.
Yeah.
And they fucking win the war. And like when Gandalf shows up, it's like, okay, we are a lot closer to winning the war now. It's like, that is, I mean, if there's a masculine archetype, come on, Gandalf, people. Like, that's like getting to there. I mean, compromise is anything short of that, basically. It's like, and like to some degree, we aren't Gandalf, and that degree is like compromise or whatever. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, if we want to get hardcore, we could go into like the model of the hero or the winner in Dune, for example, versus in Lord of the Rings. Like that, you know what I mean? Like that's a very, very different shape of a story, a very different mythical arc. Um, yeah, so bookmark there. Maybe we'll circle back. But one thing that comes up for me in hearing you is around like, let's see how I can frame this. So check this out. I've been tripping out about this a lot lately, right? Where it's like when we're young, we kind of all assume that we're gonna make it and it's gonna work out, right?
Yeah.
And
Being the
then
mother
like
of
it's so
I would say that is absolutely true.
yeah, and like it's almost like people stop believing in their dreams gradually over time because it's like, what do you do to reconcile your dreams? You either create them or you work really hard to anyways, or until you do, or you give up on yourself or like rationalize yourself out of the dreams, potentially related to unworthiness or it's impossible or I'm a victim or capitalism or patriarchy or whatever stories suit your identity markers and ideological commitments. Um, just to be direct, it seems like that's what's going on for a lot of folks. And yeah, it's trippy because I see this in myself where it's like, yeah, everybody kind of thought that their dreams would like their life would work out until they didn't. And that's wild to think about. Like, it's wild to think about that, the reality of like, oh, I was with a client once and it was quite difficult for me to like I wanted him to realize that it might not all work out. That it seemed like that idea was keeping him uh in a losing mode, like he was in a matrix or in a behavior set that, as far as I could tell, was very unlikely to result in success in his life, financially, spiritually, relationally, etc. And it seemed like his mind, like his frame was like, oh, it's okay. It's gonna be okay. And it's like I don't believe this fully, but like the thing that I wanted to say is like, what if it's not okay? And it's not gonna be okay. And it's not gonna work out. And that's not okay. You know, like this sense of just like wake up, grow up, like take action, stop being delusional. And almost from a place of tough love of like, yeah, how many people didn't hear that? And then they just did these totally dysfunctional and toxic or just kind of like mediocre behaviors forever until they're like, oh, I'm 57 now. I guess it's not going to work out for me. Do you know what I mean? It's like nobody wanted to like live alone in a trailer park and be like single and a semi-alcoholic working as a custodian at the middle school that he went to. It's like that's not the dream for anybody, I think. Like, I mean, maybe it is, but I'm just kind of speaking to the place of like what seems like people get entrapped in, at least in part, is a delusion that their behaviors are going to result in the thing that they want. And the way that they're operating is actually going to work out for them. And I think that it's tricky, but like, yeah, I wonder about the consequence of this conclusion or assumption that it's going to be okay and how people tolerate that. And even how I think there's a cultural meme that's, let's say, within the Matrix that maybe affects men more than women, but is kind of like, just chill out, bro. Like, don't be so intense. Like, do you know what I mean? It's like this frame of like when someone's like, oh man, I have like these ambitions. I wanted this, I wanted that. It's like I'm super clear about what the life I want to live. It's like I'm gonna do that. And like it's really hard and I'm working really hard that there's like one guy's like, dude, just chill out. What do you got to prove? Like it's almost like there must be something wrong with you if you feel this ambitious, right? And it's like it's so tricky because then on the other side of it, that can totally be true. And people's ambitions are really just a compromise, and they've externalized their sense of self-worth and self-esteem. And the reason why they're chasing after all these success metrics is because they're actually not facing their own shit, like this fundamental feeling of unworthiness. And for me, what tracks is like existential terror in myself, of like this deep feeling of like, I'm not okay. So I have to run after okay. And it's like, yeah, that'll fuck you up too, right? So it's like, there's both sides. It's like, how do we not delude ourselves into like being weak and unambitious? And how do we not delude ourselves into being powerful and ambitious?
Mhm.
Which comes back to dun da da da, doing the inner work, getting to know yourself. We made it, y'all. Here we go. Is the session over? We made it to the intention that we had. 75 minutes into the call. Here we go.
I think that actually just finishes our introduction, unfortunately.
Hell yeah. I think you're probably right. And like, you know, let's see how far we want to go here. Maybe we can do another call soon, because it does feel like we're getting in. We're in the game, you know? Maybe it was a little like, oh, this feels weird earlier and on our last call, it did for me. And now I'm like, okay, maybe we did the bad thing for long enough that we can do the good thing now.
Mm.
I don't know, all this talk about dreams.
Hmm.
This is really sad, everybody. Listen, this is gonna be so sad. I didn't have the dreams. I stopped having dreams very early. Like my hopes and dreams were like not, they became like small very quickly, or like watered down. I remember recently I was reading through a lot of like journals that I wrote in my early, like in my tween years, like 12, 13. And I really, first, I was stuck on this idea that I would be dead by the time I was 40. I was convinced of it,
Mm.
like for years. That was
How old
my
are you,
dream.
Sai?
40,
How
almost 45. I'll be 45 in August. I made
okay,
it.
we made it.
I made my hopes and dreams. But I mean, so it was I think that's also something that is true about people, is that they're, you know, because of you named a whole list of things, and including like childhood traumas and, you know, parents' dreams not being sought after, that and also just personality types. Like I had the go along to get along, like people pleasing, you know, like my needs are actually not important, and so my dreams are whatever your dreams are, or you know, I
Mhm.
don't actually have dreams at all. um
Mm.
into the, yeah, that's like a whole nother maybe, yeah, plays into how that manifests, especially when it comes to um motivation and discipline and like taking
Yeah.
action in the world. It's like, what am I even taking action toward? I don't even know what I'm doing. I don't even know what I want to be when I grow up.
I
uh,
I love what I mean. I think that what you're saying is so big, and I think that there are different flavors for men and different flavors for women. And I'm not even suggesting that this is more about nature than nurture. I don't know. I think it would be impossible to have real data on that for obvious reasons. But yeah, the frame that I have heard is there are three different kinds of externalized self-worth, or like outside in versus inside out self-esteem. And one of them is I have value because you say I do. And this is the one that I think predominantly plagues females.
yes.
And I think the one that plagues men is like I have worth because of what I have,
Mm,
because of what I can, you know, the way I can perform.
right. That makes so much
Of like, oh, I
sense.
can throw a baseball, or like I have millions of dollars or whatever. So we're self-abandoning because we think that our value comes from XYZ, rather than having the actual space to get to know ourselves and our interests and allow our creativity to emerge from a place of self-connection that is provided the space that it needs. and the safety it needs. Like I don't need to exploit myself to get things that I need to survive. I can actually just exist and figure out what's true for me. And this is so deep. This is, and Jonathan, if you remember in the Men of Substance work and in the other stuff that I teach, it's like this teaching called give yo dick some space is like one of the very first things is like you have to be able to just be like, I'm alive and I'm having an experience. Let me get curious about it and have a real experience and not like a outpictured projection on myself and on my body and on my sexuality because I'm in this matrix related to a lack of self-esteem. Fundamentally, it's a worth issue. It's a fundamental worth issue, and women have a different version of this. And there are very clear processes for getting out of this. It's not, I think probably won't get into it on the call, but it's like this stuff is easy to fix. It's simple. When people understand the process, it's easy to understand how to like be like, okay, I'm going to give myself space to have a real experience instead of I'm in this thing in most cases that people have been running their whole life and they don't even know it. Like what Jonathan mentioned before, this thing of like one fish says to the other fish, oh, the water's warm today. And then the second fish says, what's water? You know, that it's the same sense of just kind of like, oh, I'm not giving my dick space today to be like, what's water? It's almost like I didn't even, that people think that their adaptations are the mature adult and they're not. And they have no context because humans learn through contrast. So until we can see via proxy or coaching or inspiration as proxy, you know, but like the sense of like, oh, wow, that's super cool. I like identified that that's more interesting to me than whatever this is. Then we can be like, oh, what is this? Right. And this is, you know, there's ways to look at this within consciousness and mind. And there's also ways to look at it somatically of just looking at like, oh, what feels better? Like what is like, wow, that's beautiful. And I would love to explore that or from there versus I don't enjoy this, which, you know, from talking to, you know, hundreds and hundreds of men about their sexual lives, it's super common for men to actually be really uncomfortable in having sex, which is so ironic because there's so much joy and relief and need around sexual expression and sexual connection. But there's often for so many this feeling of like, I don't even really enjoy it. I don't like having sex, even though I think I will. It's like addiction consciousness is like, oh, I don't, when I'm in it, I don't enjoy it. But when I'm not in it, I feel like I need it. That this is super common. And yeah, I think it's related to the matrix effect or like the fields that we enter into and what the mindset and the thoughts and the behaviors and feelings and everything that are associated with that particular frame. And then the most important question is how do we get out of it? What do we do? What do we do? And hence again the need for support and community and good teachings and to have a legit practice of self-exploration and embodiment work and somatics and all this stuff. And if this feels like vast for people, it's like, yeah, maybe because it is, but in another way, it's, you know, it's been mapped. There's a lot of bodies of work, let's say, or teachers or teachings that you can find if you're interested in changing it up. And yeah, brings up the conversation that me and you had, Jonathan, about cults, where it's kind of like if you start to offer people too much of how to get out of the matrix, you're a cult. But if you just have like one segment, if you're like, this is how you build a business, or this is how you sing, or like this is how you have sex, or this is how you, I don't know, can have a different kind of relationship with your wife or whatever. It's like, yeah, you can teach those things, but if you teach them all in one place, you're a cult.
Well, that you know that goes back to something I think in our last conversation that it's so interesting. A lot of the best, clearest doorways outside of the matrix are actually like there's a catcher's mitt of another matrix waiting for you. Like
Yeah.
this is so true of like critical theory is like there's probably no better like mind power has been put into mapping the matrix, but to get that, there is like you have to like move into another matrix. It's like and
Wow.
it's true with the cults. It's like, yeah,
Yeah.
to be so liberated, it's like baby needs a new womb,
Yeah.
like if we're gonna live this
Yeah.
one.
It's so crazy. Like, okay, so this is a fascinating one that we can play around in. So, like, maybe have you guys heard of the theory that like religions were are like alien implants? Do you know about this theory related to the protection of the soul?
I know, but I agree with it and I love it already. It's just that
You
that's
agree
so
with it.
like
I love that
far
part. I love that
out.
that's a first. Yeah, so totally. So like there's something about that that I think is super interesting and it makes me think of like what was the matrix that they were trying to get us out of to put us into a new one to protect us? And just to be clear, the thing that I'm talking about, I don't even remember where I heard it, but it was like there was this theory that like religion is like a psyop implant that was seeded by aliens to protect human beings from corrupting their souls.
Mm.
That basically like Earth is a soul farm where souls are cultivated to either evolve or grow or whatever. And uh we were going to fuck up their crops. So they implanted religion so that we would grow inside of a matrix that we wouldn't corrupt our souls or their harvest, their souls, their crops.
Yeah. It's funny how many times people have invented Gnosticism. They keep inventing it.
Sure. Well, in any case, it's like that's an interest. Like, let's say that's a fun premise to work in, right? So it would be like, what was the matrix that they needed to protect us from before we entered into this new matrix called Catholicism or Islam or Hinduism or whatever? Like, what was the previous matrix built out of? And it's like, is it just some intersection of primality and evil that resulted, or like to get even more basic and more secular, like primality, fear, greed, other consciousness, and the kind of like tyranny and misuse of power, or even to get even further secular, not even misuse of power, like a use of power that doesn't result in mature, diverse ecosystems and a care for the goodness of all beings. That feels like a frame. That feels like a good vocabulary to work from. That's a ground. Good enough ground. So like, yeah, if it's that of like, okay, there are these monkeys that are growing and they are behaving in a way based on their own fear and tribalism and maybe how they're not regulating their nervous systems because they now can think obsessively because we gave them language. Now they're going to ruin themselves. We need to create a like lattice work for, or like monkey bars for them to swing around inside of so that they don't all die or worse or corrupt their souls, die on a more spiritual level or whatever. Uh, does that feel like a workable frame? And now we're entering into like what did religion do? And now or when are we just kind of like, okay, tired of that. It feels a little too constrained. There's some stuff that it doesn't afford us. Let's I don't know, have orgies again or do drugs or whatever.
Hmm. You know that
You
brings
like
up a
to
lot.
have orgies and do drugs? Is that what you're chuckling
Yeah,
at? We
if
want butt sex and meth. No, just kidding.
no, I barely survived my 20s, Rob. The yeah, the idea of what religions give us, or like if we encounter that matrix as kind of from a Stafford Beer um rule of like a system is for the thing that it does, which I think is like the best way to like look at it. It's like, yeah, religion is such a powerful matrix that it starts to encapsulate not just material reality, but it even like goes beyond it and architects the unseen.
But
And
I mean, the causality of your language is trippy to me. I would want to look at that. Like, how do we know about the sequence or the order here? Like, is the mythopoetic realm and the unseen realm something that we are architecting from, or that we are architecting?
yeah, I think yes. Like like
Perfect. That's
um
enough. Continue. I'm like, good.
I
We're good. Check. Continue now. Thank you.
I think that's I kind of think of it as like the dark territory where it's like we actually have such low resolution direct sense of it. Sometimes we have like it's so HD that we have to be put in an insane asylum for the protection of other people. But like there is this territory of existence that we have some indirect connection to, and we have to work hard to like get more HD like images of it, but like it has to be mapped out. Like it like
So,
and those maps are always going to
yeah,
be architected and sort of like
yeah.
defined.
Yeah, totally. And I mean, I think some people might say that they're working in the opposite direction, that they're trying to figure out how to be ordinary, right? Like there's definitely been times in my life where I felt way more connected to that than to how to be a guy on this plane.
Mm,
And so that's hard. I mean, that's hard. That's hard. I think that it's extremely difficult to be that spiritually connected and then have to figure out how to create a viable life that works. I think that that's probably harder than having material success in a grounded, ordinary life and then having an awakening when you're in your 40s. It's
mm.
probably way harder, actually.
Yeah.
Way harder.
Right, but there I guess I'm a little tripped up because I'm kind of trying to conceptualize like how does the religion end up like how does it end up creating the container that we can really swim in, like these aliens building this religion? Like, because yeah, the
Yeah, yeah,
mystic
yeah, 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 yeah. Got it, got it, got it, got it.
already, the mystic path, yeah, of just already being outside is like, yeah, that's a different like the mystics have always secretly been the biggest the religion, it's like the solar religion versus the lunar mystic has always been the core tension in spirituality, I think.
But we can also look at the other side of like what is the solar mystic? You know what I mean? Like we even that is like
Mm.
is that a matrix thought? You know, like that's interesting. Is like
Yeah.
do you know what
Yeah,
I mean?
same.
Is it the earth? Where's the Earth Father? You know what I mean? And the, like, where's the lunar father? Where's the Earth Father? Where's the solar mother? It's like yeah, all that gets kind of matrixed out of our heads too. And I don't
Mm.
think it's because it's no less real, like in a cosmic or universal sense or a mythopoetic sense. It's just gets more press, you know. Yeah, well, and I think that that may be part of the, let's say, the patriarchy matrix is the fact that that gets like there is no Earth Father, there is no like Moon Father, is maybe a part of the control matrix that we live inside of.
Mm.
But yeah, man, it's
Yeah.
interesting because like, go ahead.
No, continue.
Like the Ten Commandments would be like an easy way to just maybe look at your question, right? Is like, how does this protect humans from like fucking up their souls and the earth? To be like, okay, let's just like keep putting bumpers on the bowling lane here. You know what I mean? It's like they're gonna throw another gutter ball. We need a new bumper. Has to be like, okay, don't fuck your neighbor's wife. Like, okay, cool.
Yeah.
Check. We're fine. Like there's a bunch of stuff that's more complicated than they know how to deal with. We'll just be like, don't have sex with her. It's just like, just like as an example of like, how do we continue to give human beings parameters to ensure that the probability of them being okay is as good as we need it to be? Like if we're
Yeah,
just
and
like investments and risk profiles and, hedging.
well, this has I'm like so excited right now. This has such core. This is so core to something I love to just like think about of like religion as the spiritual technology that like all technologies has this kind of rhythmic conversation with the unfolding of the human race, such that if you read the Odyssey, like at the end of the Odyssey, um Odysseus fucking murders everybody because he
Mhm.
comes to a house and it's like all these guys, he's been gone for 10 years. They of course they think he's dead or whatever, and they're there to marry the rich hot woman.
Yeah.
And so Odysseus is like, he comes from a culture where it's like, you have disrespected me, and I can't just let people go around disrespecting me because there's no police to call. There's no like rules of like, don't be disrespecting people. There's only one way to make sure people don't disrespect you is you fucking kill all the guys who are hanging out at your house. And then, but what's really crazy at the end of the Odyssey, the problem with like pride based like revenge cultures is that people give birth to sons, and the sons have their dads murdered, and then they make it their psychotic one goal is to kill the man who killed their father. So at the end of the Odyssey, everyone gets their memory wiped after Odysseus turns like his courtyard into a bloodbath. And
Mhm.
it's like that was good. There was like spiritual technology at work throughout. I mean, you read the Odyssey, they
But
have a really enchanted, architected universe,
yeah,
but
yeah.
that changed. And like, yeah.
Well, what I want to say, Jonathan, is that like the only piece that I would want to refine to continue operating our exploration here would be why is this a spiritual technology?
Mm.
Like what makes it just fucking practical? Like do you know what I mean? Like what if we were to just look at it from the level of like we're just architecting civilization. This doesn't have anything to do with spirituality.
I I I'm I there was a there have been time slices of Jonathan who would have 100% preferred to put it purely in a material, like a dialectical materialist framework of like it's just the superstructure to like to reify
Exactly.
material class
Totally.
relationships.
Yeah, like the difference between like how is this protecting civilization rather than how is this protecting the soul?
But it does, yeah, and it I think it does both, and I only feel that way now because I've actually used the tech and like, oh, it's like works. Like religion is real. It work like the system works. Like if you work religion, it's like, oh yeah, I am. It's like if you are practicing Catholic and you go to confession, it's real. It's like the process is real.
Mm.
And yeah, so
Mm.
it's like
Yeah,
the religion actually does that and you can experience it. A lot of
that's
people
so
have,
cool. I love
yeah.
that. It's almost like the same thing could be said about entrepreneurship. It's like if you worship entrepreneurship, it works.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
You do the technology, it works.
Hmm.
Mm.
I mean, is it different? Is it different than that?
It's way less cool, but yeah, it's work. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's way less cool for you in a certain way. Do you know what I
My
mean? But it's like we could say that like it's cool because you have food and a home, right? And there's not like war. But if that wasn't true, marketing might be cooler than Catholicism, right? It's like, do you know what I mean? If you didn't have a baseline safety and security and material resources to survive and to provide for the people you love, you might not feel that way anymore.
Yeah,
It
I
might be like
think
marketing is really cool.
although I don't know if that's true because there's also like if I look around at the world, the less affluent you are, the way more likely religion is where you put all your eggs. And
Great
it's
point.
like there's this way that affluence sort of de-enchants the world and things like marketing and entrepreneurship feel more like self-actualization. That appears to be, I don't know, what do
but I
I
get,
know? But that's
so this
it's
is a
kind of what it
question.
looks
But I wonder about this because, like, does it seem like there's also something embedded in religion that relates to, like, this is where you can focus your creative energies because you can't take responsibility for your life?
like.
I don't know. That's a question. Because, like, are those people actually living their dream in reality? Are they living in alignment with their genius and with their, like, their singular contribution? Or did they give that up and then are seeking to reconcile not being in integrity by praying away their guilt? I'm getting hard in like hard language here, but like there's another, yeah. Then there's
Well,
other frames. Go ahead.
there's this like reflexive thing of like, yeah, or is living your genius just another matrix of a certain society that like gets a lot out of entrepreneurship? So it's like
For sure.
the
That's a great point.
superstructure here, it's like, yeah,
Great point.
live your truth, be you, take marketing classes and like, build wealth this way. And it's like,
Yeah,
I don't know, I don't
totally.
know.
And I think, I mean,
Like,
this is so crazy because it brings back the whole thing of like we're both moved by our logic and reason, and we're moved by our feelings and the symbols. And I think what exists on a level of symbol and identity is way more powerful than our conscious mind stuff. And just curious about like what gets mobilized energetically at that level. And how did it end up like that in the first place is super interesting. Like, what is the symbols and the identity structures that are in us that are the conduits that energy are moving, and how is this interfacing with these superstructures is like very real. And then how does this swapping out happen? And this is where marketing gets really interesting because marketing is in a big way meritocracy, like a meritocracy around change or leveraging how people already are, I guess. But that's still change because otherwise it would just be the same thing tomorrow when it isn't. It's fascinating, right? To think about that. Like if marketing is change work of just like how are we swapping out symbols and beliefs because we're trying to collect money based on the behavior that happens when we do that change work. Because what else
I,
would marketing be, you know?
Please don't include me. I don't know. Don't ask me.
What are you experiencing, Sai? What's happening for you? Do you feel like you're like just like in lady brain right now? Or like what are you?
Frank, I'm enjoying witnessing and not at all like wanting to contribute. I don't know, not in a bad way, like in a like this is not my wheelhouse of discussion on either point, but it's very fascinating to listen to and to wonder as I'm listening.
Hmm.
Um yeah, so maybe that's lady brain. I'm like receptive and open and wide and powerful.
I notice I keep checking in on you, and the like energy movements you're making are like they feel like mirroring my
Uh-huh.
insides, and I'm like, whoa,
Yeah.
yeah, it's like that.
I do that.
You do that a lot, yeah.
Apparently I do that.
Ah, I
We're
think
almost out of time, y'all.
yeah, I
Yeah.
think we got a really big bite. I want before we wrap it up, Rob, can you tell people ways that they can give you money and get more Rob Kancler?
Um, okay. I'm looking at my list. We'll get to that in a second. I'm just taking a look at my little cute notepads here. And I wrote down social matrix, which is an interesting thing that I think is so in Men of Substance, something that I do on a weekly basis is I kind of like take time to really sit with my thoughts and my notes and stuff I've taught in the past and what I feel, what I can sense or make sense of is relevant for the field, for the group of people. in the program. And one of the things that has been super present to me is how important it is to get out of this kind of social matrix for people to be able to fully take responsibility for and explore what's possible sexually. That there needs to be this like ability to stop playing the social game, to be able to connect to our kind of instinctual, intuitive intelligence and to get to know our sexuality outside of this, self-esteem, worthiness matrix thing, and the other stuff that can play. So that's one thing that's just on my mind is like you have to use strong language. Like it seems like there's a huge correlation between people's willingness to kind of be so self-involved that they can have a deep and profound experience, simultaneous with the ability to experience profound intimacy and like relational devotion and vulnerability in a way. And it seems like that is just such an insanely useful recipe, is the ability to be so self-connected and self-involved and giving yourself permission to have a deeply self-serving and self-interested and self-allowing experience while being relational and generous. That it seems like certain kinds of orgasm correlate directly to that if we're in a more enmeshed transactional frame where the way that we perform or the way that we sense our own worth is enmeshed with other people or our actions, that so much of our orgasmic profile or whatever is incompatible with those matrices. And to access deeper kinds of orgasm and different experiences within consciousness and embodiment, we have to get out of that game. And one clear point of entry is related to the social matrices, the social norms, the social contracts that we have that so often come up when we're just in presence with other people. Like, can we be here and be connected to ourselves and not, like a word that people say is like not giving a fuck. Like Mark Manson's thing, that best-selling book, like The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck. Like, how do you not give a fuck, but still be like devotional and in love is kind of like one of the heuristics or one of the things that you could wander into here. So yeah, I don't know when this is going to be published, so I would say just look me up. if you're interested, just find me. I'm not that hard to find. My last name is Kancler, Kancler, Rob Kancler. At Rob Kancler on most socials. Yeah, just find me if you're curious. We got a bunch of stuff that happens from various levels. If you just want to get a taste, you can find lots of podcasts and stuff. And we got a course coming up in August 2025. Right now it's mid-July at the time that we're recording this, and I think sometime in August we're going to be starting an 8-week deep dive that will be incredibly cool, to say the least.
So the container is now closed. Would you like to take us out?
Keep it namaste.